Hi there. Before we get into part 2, Jenny pointed out that the mesh that you import into Unreal is missing LODs. Let's fix that right away. To generate LODs, open your mesh in Unreal. Under LOD settings, select how many LODs you wish to generate and press generate. Select LOD1 in the LOD picker, open the reduction settings and enable remap morph targets. Hit regenerate LOD. Now your LOD will inherit all the blend shapes we made for the original mesh. And then you just repeat this for all the other LODs. Create a new blueprint. This is gonna contain all the character creator logic. Let's pause here. Let's talk a bit about naming convention. As I was working on the tutorial, I decided to switch to using Unreal's recommended naming convention. Link in the description. For blueprints, it says BP underscore and then the name of your blueprint. So the name I just gave our new blueprint is wrong. You'll notice that I used the wrong naming convention for a while. Ignore this and follow Unreal's documents instead. Of course, if you already have your own naming convention for assets in Unreal, then that's fine too. But if you don't, then this Unreal doc will give you a convention to follow. Let's add a scene component and call it character spawn. Scene components are empty components useful for defining a location. In this case, our character's spawn location. Now let's add a spring arm component and call it camera boom. Select this component and add a camera component. Switch to the event graph and drag out a new node from begin play. Type spawn actor from class and switch the class to your MetaHuman blueprint. Drag out the character spawn and get its transform data. Hook it up to spawn transform and this will tell the spawn actor node where to spawn the character. Let's do a quick test. Drag the character creator blueprint into your scene and hit play. Seems to be working. If you select all the nodes that we just created and press C, you will create a comment box around the selected nodes. This can help you keep things organized when your blueprints begin to grow in complexity. If you hold S and left click, you will create a sequence node. This will simply execute your code in sequence. It's a good way to organize your code more vertically rather than end up with one long horizontal chain of nodes. Right-click and add a getPlayerController node. Drag out from the return value and add a setViewTarget with blend node. Then hook it up to the sequence node. Add a reference-to-self node and hook it up to the new viewTarget input. This setup we just made will tell Unreal to switch camera to the camera included in this blueprint. If you press play now, you will see that the camera is staring at the character's feet. So it's working, but we need to adjust the camera. Go back to your blueprints viewport. Select the camera boom, rotate it -90 degrees in Z-axis and set location Z to 150. That seems like a more useful camera angle. Add a new pin. If you hold Ctrl down and click drag the other pins, you can reconnect them so we can add new code at the top. Something I forgot while recording is that you can also insert new pins by right-clicking on one of the existing pins and then click Insert Execution Pin before or after. Let's add another getPlayerController node. Drag out and right set show mouse cursor and enable the checkbox. And now we have a mouse cursor when we press play. Now let's add some input logic. Go to Edit, Project Settings, Input. Add a new action mapping, let's call it Interact. And assign left mouse button as the input. To read the input, we're gonna need a player controller blueprint. So let's add that now. Open the controller blueprint and add the new interact action event we just created in the input settings. Add a new variable called character creator and change it to the character creator blueprint type. Drag it in so we can set the variable. Now add a getActor of class node and set the actor class to the character creator blueprint class. Hook this all up so that it fires off on begin play. This gets hold of our character creator object so we can talk to it when we get input. Switch back to the character creator blueprint and add a new boolean and call it isInteracting. Now in our player controller blueprint we can get the character creator variable and drag out the setIsInteract node. and we'll set it to true when the interact input is pressed and set it to off when the interact input is released. If you don't already have a tick event in the character creator blueprint, add it now. Hold B and left click. This will create a branch node. The branch node takes in a boolean and then splits your code into two paths related to whether the boolean is true or not. Plug the isInteracting variable into the condition. Now let's add a new interact update function that will be executed every frame, and add this function to the true pin. This function is gonna need to know how much time has passed since the last frame. If you select the interact update node in the details panels, you can then add a new input and call it delta seconds. Then simply hook up the delta seconds from the tick node. Okay, now we need the actual input from the mouse movement. Add two new axis mappings. Call them mouse X and mouse Y. Assign the corresponding input for each. In your character creator blueprint, add two float variables and call them mouse X and mouse Y. Switch to the player controller and add the newly created mouse X axis event. Select the character creator variable node and press Ctrl W to duplicate. Drag out and write set mouse X. Hook everything up and let's repeat for mouse Y. We finally have enough of the pieces to make the orbit logic. Open the interact update function and drag out the camera boom object. Drag out the get world rotation node. Right click on the output and click split struct pin. Drag out from camera boom again and write set world rotation. This time split the input pin. From the yaw of get world rotation, add a plus node. Add a mouse speed variable so we can control mouse sensitivity. We need to multiply this mouse speed with the delta seconds to make sure our speed is frame independent. Now we must multiply this new value with mouse X and we add this value to the existing yaw value. And finally we update the yaw with this new value. I'm gonna do a quick cleanup of the nodes. If you hold Ctrl and left click on a connection, you will add a new knot that you can manipulate to help organize your code. I'm going to repeat the process for mouse Y and hook it up to the pitch. In order to use our custom player controller, we need to create our own game mode blueprint. In the World Settings window, select your new game mode and then select your custom player controller. If you press play, you should now be able to orbit the camera around your character. Add a zoom function in your character creator blueprint. Drag in the camera boom object and from that drag out the set target arm length. We also need to get the target arm length. We then add the existing target arm length with the zoom amount and hook that value up to set the target arm length. Let's clean that up a bit. We multiply the amount by our zoom speed. Add a new axis mapping, call it zoom, and add mouse wheel as the input. Add this new zoom function in your player controller and make it call the zoom function we just made in Character Creator. If we hit play, we should now be able to zoom in and out using mouse wheel. We now have functionality, but we need to set some limits to avoid ugly, broken camera angles. Let's add 4 new variables: min zoom, max zoom, min pitch, and max pitch. Before setting our pitch value, drag out and type clamp. Assign min pitch and max pitch to min and max and reassign the output to the pitch value. Let's do the exact same for the target arm length. Press play and select the character creator blueprint in the world outliner. In the details panel, you can now tweak the values to something you like. If you don't see these values, make sure that you have made these variables visible by pressing the eye icon next to each variable. Once you're happy with the values, remember these values, exit play mode, and switch back to your character blueprint to reapply those values to save them as the default values. If we hit play now, you should have a metahuman spawned with a custom camera that you can orbit around the character using mouse input. In part 3, we're gonna look at letting the player sculpt the face. See ya!